on at 1 o'clock, 1 to 2 every day for the rest of your life. How about that? I mean, I'm not going to stand by that promise necessarily, but it's going to be a while. Okay, I was on at 6 to 7. I was filling in for Tex. From what I understand, he's back from his wrangling trip. I don't understand the logistics of all of that, but I believe that it's hard work. The unnecessary amounts of chafing and lack of toiletries that must have been that trip. Look, we're just glad to have Tex back in one piece. We missed him. And you can catch him from 6 to 7 here on AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio. Speaking of catching people on Hot News Talk Radio, you can catch us in a number of different places on Twitter and Facebook if you search Hot News Talk Radio, or our Twitter handle, which is at Hot News Radio. You can search us there as well. You can find us on the TuneIn Radio app. Search it in the Apple Store or the Google Play Store on your mobile device. Hot News Talk Radio. Search it in there. Click follow, and you'll have Hot News Talk Radio wherever you go. So, without further ado, I'd like to get into Clutch. This is a sports show. We bring you the information that you want to know and need to know just as you need to know it. We always come through for you in the Clutch. I'd like to go down some high school scores from this weekend. Football is back, okay? You've got college football starting up this Thursday. High school football, this is week 2, and the NFL is just around the corner, along with all of the drama that entails. And I'm a Redskins fan. There is so much drama there. And it's the leading story of the day. And I pleaded last week. Can the Redskins be out of the news for just one off season? And we didn't even make it a week between Redskins stories. We couldn't even make it 1 week. And I'll explain to you why that is. But first, let's look at some high school scores that may be of note to you. Over the weekend, Ottawa destroyed Signal Mountain 46-3. Sale Creek was able to beat Concord Christian, the score of 45-13. Tyner edged past Notre Dame 27-21. Notre Dame had a chance to score and take the victory there at the end of the game, but they were held up on the goal line by Tyner's defense. Boyd Buchanan beats Kings Academy 49-26. Oneida squeaks past Meggs 13-7 in overtime. Ray County lays the smackdown on McMinn 62-20, and Eastridge beat Brainerd 21-14. So, exciting weekend of high school football for those of you that were out there watching it. And in the NFL, a lot of the off the field things far outweighed the on the field things. And I say that with regards to the Washington Redskins, but of course this is also the part of the off season where if you haven't named your starting quarterback yet, this is around that time where you'll start doing that because teams prepare for their week 1 opponents this week. You start doing that from now. So Robert Griffin III was injured. He had a concussion, and he got knocked out of the game against the Lions in week 2 of the preseason. The Redskins played in week 3 and had to start Kirk Cousins, who's the backup quarterback, who's been in and out as starter because Robert Griffin's health concerns seem to always be an issue. Cousins gets the start. Cousins looks pretty good. He looks pretty impressive, which we all knew Cousins could play the quarterback position. That's really not the issue here. The issue with Kirk Cousins has always been the mental side of things. If Kirk Cousins throws an interception or two, or he has a fumble and an interception, he starts to look like he's melted, like he's just imploded. And his body language is off, and then he starts to make bad decisions, and then it spirals out of control. It's also interesting to note that Kirk Cousins started one game after Robert Griffin got hurt in his rookie season, and he won that game against the Cleveland Browns, and that is the only game that Kirk Cousins has ever won as a Washington Redskins starter. Just like to Toss that out there as just a general fact before we start running out the Kirk Cousins is obviously better than Robert Griffin. He's better, sort of. He's got the offense down more. You can definitely see that. He goes through the progressions much more quickly. He understands where things are going much better. But when it comes to the mental fortitude, I wouldn't say that he's better. Maybe he's not much worse, but I wouldn't say that he's better. We're talking about dysfunctionality. This is the Washington Redskins brand. Okay, this is what they've become. This is what they're known for now, is dysfunctionality, and not just dysfunctionality, pure dysfunctionality, dysfunctionality of the highest order. And the way this whole situation got handled is just proof of that. Some of it is not the organization's fault, but a lot of it is. When you look back at that first injury that Griffin suffered, he was concussed, and he passed the concussion test. He passed the baseline concussion test. So the team says, well, if Robert's good to go, he's going to start week 3 of the preseason. All right, cool. So we get to week 3 of the preseason, and then, well, we come close to it, and then a independent neurologist that the team has to go to per the concussion guidelines of the league basically said that Robert Griffin was not cleared to start in week 3 of the preseason, that upon further review, his tests were negative, or positive rather. He can't play. He's still got some damage in his brain. So the Redskins say, well, that's fine. We'll just start Kirk Cousins. And this whole thing is getting out of control now, because first you said he could play, then you said he couldn't play, then people asked Robert Griffin about it, and he said he didn't even have a concussion. And so there's so much he said going on in this entire situation, and the coach is supposed to get control of this thing. Jay Gruden should just say, look, we were mistaken. We thought this. We were wrong. Nobody handled the situation. And so now Robert Griffin, who Jay Gruden has been saying this entire offseason, this is Robert's team. This is where he's going to be on our offense. He's going to have control. He cannot lose this job simply by having a few bad starts in the preseason. He can't just lose it like that. Okay? He's been saying this. And this is part of the dysfunctionality. You can't keep pounding your fist to the table and saying, Robert is our guy. Robert is the guy here. We're going to continue to move forward with this and see what we have in Robert. And then at season's end, or at preseason's end, okay, Robert Griffin misses a game because of concussion. Kirk Cousins looks good, okay? This is Kirk Cousins' team. Kirk Cousins is the starter for week 1, which I understand naming him the starter for week 1. This is when you have to prepare for your week 1 team, and which would be the Miami Dolphins. So I understand naming your week 1 starter from now, but a report just came in that Jay Gruden is saying that Kirk Cousins isn't just the week 1 starter, he's the starter for the whole season. So what was all of that about Robert Griffin then? That Kirk Cousins earned the starting job from one preseason game? That doesn't make any sense. Either he looked really, really good in that one preseason game, and I saw Kirk, he looked all right, okay? Either he looked really, really good in that one preseason game, or there's something that you've been seeing in practice where you thought Kirk Cousins was better than Robert Griffin in practice, which is fine, but then you should have named him the starter before then. That's called having an organization. That's literally being organized so that everyone's on the same page, because Kirk Cousins doesn't play the same style of game that Robert Griffin plays. He doesn't. Okay? And that's fine. Again, there's nothing inherently wrong with the smaller pieces of what's happening here with the Redskins, but they are disorganized. They are a dysfunctional organization, and dysfunction is a top-down problem. The phrase that crap rolls downhill is true. There's a reason why that's a figure of speech. It starts with the owner, Daniel Snyder. Daniel Snyder's biggest problem is the same problem that Al Davis had with the Raiders. It's the same problem that a lot of owners have. Al Davis is a fan of the Washington Redskins. He is a guy that felt like he was lucky. He got to buy his favorite team. His favorite team went for sale around the time that he had enough money to purchase an NFL franchise. He bought his favorite team, which fantastic. But he let his fandom get in the way. If there's a player that he liked, he'd push for the team to get that guy. If there's a player he didn't like, he'd push for the team to move that guy. Players got preferential treatment because he was friends with them as a fan. The stories of Clinton Portis when he was a running back there, getting preferential treatment over other players, being on a first-name basis with Daniel Snyder, texting with Daniel Snyder. The Redskins pushing to get Albert Hainsworth. The Redskins signing Deion Sanders well past his prime. A lot of these moves have to do with Daniel Snyder simply being a fan of the team. The problem with that is when you're a fan of a team, you want some control. And you're the owner. You have all the control. So you don't let the football guys, your general manager, your head coaches, your vice president and president of football operations, you don't let these people make the decisions that they need to make to give you a fully functioning football team. A functioning football team. You don't get any of these things because you've got to stick your hand in the cookie jar. Well, no, but I don't like that guy as much, or I really like this guy. You can't bench this guy. I like him. And Daniel Snyder would do this. Daniel Snyder and Robert Griffin are very close, which is probably why the team is hamstrung with this particular decision. I think the Redskins organization would have probably cut ties with Robert Griffin long ago. Possibly even in the Mike Shanahan era, if he had the opportunity to. Simply because they didn't like him. They were not on the same page. That relationship with Robert Griffin and this team has gone sour, but not in the case of Robert Griffin and the owner, Daniel Snyder, who is operating as an owner with the mentality of a fan. And that's dangerous. You look at a lot of great owners in sports, Robert Kraft with the Patriots. You look at a lot of these other owners and what they do well, what they do successfully with a lot of these teams is they have a hands-off approach. They let the football guys in their organization make the decisions. And that's a lot of the keys to success. If you look at the San Antonio Spurs and the way that system is and the way that team is built, they have success, sustained success for a long period of time because the basketball guys, the GM R.C. Buford and head coach and president of operations, Greg Popovich, get to make the decisions that benefit the team. And the owners just stay out of it. They back out. And that's the best way to run the team. Let the people who have knowledge of what to do, let them run it. Daniel Snyder, again, he runs the operation as a fan. And I don't blame him. I don't blame him. I don't like it, but I don't blame him. If I were an owner of a team and I was a fan of that team, I would put my input in there. And I imagine a lot of the time I'd be wrong because I don't know what I'm looking for in an offensive lineman. I'm not qualified to be an NFL GM. It's not what I was trained to do. These guys have had experience, 20, 25 years of experience. You just hired a general manager in Scott McCluhan. Let him do his job. Let him do what he needs to do to run this football team. Because you're hamstringing him. If McCluhan looks at this team and looks at this roster and says Robert Griffin III, as talented as he was in 2012, is not the correct fit, and he thinks that Kirk Cousins can be his guy, you got to be fine with that as the owner. You have to look at that and go, you know what? I might be a huge Robert Griffin fan. I might have been able to see firsthand what he did and how he resurrected this team from nothing in 2012, but it's just not been working out. We've had 2 years of moving backwards from that 2012 season, and just let go. Let the football guys do their job. We're going to talk a little bit later about the NFL and Major League Baseball and why Major League Baseball lives up much better to a promise that the NFL gives you season after season here on Clutch with Keon Rose. You're listening to AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
Media Network's coverage of the NFL. Hi, this is Jerry Recco. Join Kevin Ray, Danny White, myself for all the action.
Hot News Talk 1240.
If it's the NFL, it's right here.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Hot News Talk 1240.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Costa, host of the Costa Report, every Sunday at 9 a.m. Did you know that 1 out of 10 Americans will be diagnosed with what is considered to be a rare disease, and that it could take up to 3-5-8 years to diagnose that disease? Find out how my next guest, Jared Heyman, is using the internet to cut that time to less than 3 months. Don't miss Jared Heyman this Sunday at 9 a.m. on the Costa Report, right here on AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
Here you are, working to keep your customers happy and to manage your cash flow. IRS problems are the last thing you need, but here they are, flapping about you like vultures. Get help from Eric Pelton and his team of accountants at E.J. Pelton Company. Audits, letters, proposed return changes, 1099s, penalty threats. Pelton Tax Resolution Services brings peace of mind and helps you keep more of what you've earned. EJPelton.com. Offices on Brainerd Road and in Saudi Daisy, just north of the Bilo. That's E.J. Pelton. Call 622-3156. Think ahead, 622-3156.
When my brother and I opened our first Jets Pizza, we believed if we made the best pizza, customers would find us. So we made fresh dough each day, used fresh toppings, and premium mozzarella cheese. 300-plus stores later, we still do.
Try Jet's famous 8-corner pizza with premium mozzarella cheese and one topping, now just $11.99 for a limited time only. Jet's Pizza, the best pizza in town. 3600 Hickson Pike.
Life is short. Eat better pizza.
Let's get Jets.
Are you tired of working in corporate America, or have you recently lost your job and would like to consider owning your own business? If you are, please call me, as I can help you look at franchises or business opportunities that fit you, the economy that we're in, and the type of businesses that are right in the greater Chattanooga area. After I help my clients find the right opportunity, I also help them find the best way to finance the business, including paying yourself through the startup phase. If you would like to learn more about opportunities that may be right for you, please call me for a free assessment. My name is Bruce Krebs at the Entrepreneur Source. Phone number is 423-875-5621.
It's glad to have you back here on AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio. This is Clutch with Keon Rose. That would be me. I'm glad to be hosting this show, bringing sports to Chattanooga. This is the first local sports show of the day. So how about that? Going down some high school scores from the weekend. Exciting times in high school football. And I'm glad football's back. It's one of the most exciting things in sports. And with football especially, because if we look at things economically, value goes up with scarcity. And football is the sport with the least amount of games. So each game is more precious. I watch every single football game that the Redskins play every season, partially because apparently I don't like myself very much, but partially because if you miss one, you've missed a good chunk of the season. You miss 4 football games in an NFL season, you've missed a fourth of the season. So I always make sure to try and watch those games, and especially with college football, because there's even less of them, and it's glad to have it back. Is my point. You miss 4 baseball games, and I mean, what have you really missed? Honestly, there's 162 of them. You haven't missed that much comparatively. 82 games in an NBA season, etc. But I'd like to talk about Major League Baseball because there's something that Major League Baseball has done very well that the NFL hasn't. The NFL sells you annually on this fact that every team's got a chance to win the Super Bowl. That a few things change here and there in your team, and suddenly it's better. You've got an opportunity to win a Super Bowl. And that's incredible. I mean, it's an incredible thing to sell people on, because I think a huge draw of the NFL is my team might be the worst, but on this given season, you add the right system, you add the right coach, you add the right pieces, and we can go from worst in the division to best in the division. You know, I was talking earlier about Robert Griffin III. That's what he did for the Redskins, and that's what's so confusing about him and this whole situation in Washington, is that Robert Griffin III is a guy that showed up and showed this amazing array of skill and talent, and he brought the Redskins from the bottom of the division. They were last in the NFC East, got them to the top. They made the playoffs, and then they haven't been close since. So you have to wonder where's the line there? Like, what went wrong with all of that? That this team is so far gone with him that there's talk about trading him and releasing him from the team. I don't know what went wrong there. I think it's a whole culture in Washington. It's been dysfunctional for years. They've had a million head coaches go through there. They've had a million quarterbacks. Well, I mean, you look at the successful teams, and this is a side tangent from what I'm talking about. I will digress in a second, but you look at the successful teams in the NFL or in any sport, they don't change head coaches that often. When you have a guy that's good, you stick with him. And if you have a guy that's okay, you give him enough time to put his system in place, to put his pieces in place, to get the guys that he wants to try and move forward with. That makes sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me to keep running through quarterbacks. And you look at the Redskins, you look at the Browns, you look at a lot of these dysfunctional teams, the Bills. They've got 1,000 quarterbacks and 1,000 head coaches in the last 10 to 15 years. Okay, Robert Griffin III is only the first in a long line. They were actually talking to some of the Redskins players, and the Redskins players are so unfazed by all of this. They are so used to having quarterbacks change constantly, that this is not anything new to them. Like, who's going to be the quarterback? Yeah, don't care. Doesn't matter. I'm the offensive line. I'll block for whoever. I'm the wide receiver. I'll catch for whoever. I'm the running back. Whoever hands me the football, I'm running it. It doesn't matter. It ought to matter, but this team is so mired in dysfunctionality that nobody cares anymore. It's actually turned into apathy. Nobody cares anymore. And that's as depressing as it is impossible to win with. You can't win in a locker room like that. You simply cannot. And the NFL will sell you on this dream that your team can win. That even the Washington Redskins, dysfunctional as they are, might have a 2012 season. It could happen for you. And technically, they're not wrong. When you have a team with that many moving parts, you simply have to find the right pieces for your machine, basically, and you basically have a team that can move on. But you know what? The NFL tells you that it's the best sport for that, and I disagree. You know who's doing that better than anybody else? Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball, better than any other sport, is selling you on parity. The idea that any team can win. You look at that Moneyball team that the movie was based on, the one with Brad Pitt and Jonah Hill. It's basically taking this concept that, okay, we don't have the big bucks, we don't have the money, but what we do have is data, and we have analytics, and we can build this team based on data. We can get the guys that do the best in certain spots, and then build a team that can win it all. And it worked. It amazingly, it worked. And I think a lot of people are against those analytics because it takes the human component out of it. It boils people down to their statistical output. And as sports fans, we want to rebel against that and fight against that because we want it to be about heart and we want it to be about passion and we want it to be about what's inside, about grit and determination and all of these intangibles. And now you've boiled people down to numbers, except you really haven't. Guys still have to go out there and try. You know what I mean? Guys aren't going to go out there and go, well, my statistical output says that when I play shortstop in the third inning, I have a WAR of whatever value, and so I'm just going to be out here and I'm going to win. You still have to go out there and try your hardest. The fact of the matter is the numbers don't mean anything if you don't try. But because of this, because baseball is so much more easily boiled down to the statistical, it's easier to put together a team with less star power and win. And we're seeing it with some of these teams that were terrible for years. Years. The Houston Astros hired a new GM this season, and they've gone from one of the worst teams in baseball to a playoff team, and not just a playoff team, a formidable one. The Houston Astros are not going to be tough or are not going to be an easy out for anybody that catches them in the playoffs. I'm actually looking forward to the Houston Astros a lot. I used to listen to Astros games a lot as a kid. I was the odd kid. I'd come home and look at my radio like people used to do in the 60s and 50s. I came home and I had a big radio and a dial that I could turn, and I found all the sports stations. I found all of them. And the Ticket 760, AM 760 in San Antonio, I used to listen to the Houston Astros baseball games every day during the summer, every single day. And I mean, that was the team with Lance Berkman. That was my favorite player. Look, the Houston Astros haven't been good since then. That was 2005. Okay. Between then, there was 10 years of misery and sadness and heartache. And the Houston Astros are back, and they've built a strong team. I'm very excited to see the Houston Astros in the playoffs. Another team I'm excited to see that may make the playoffs are the Chicago Cubs. And I feel my heart goes out to Cubs fans constantly. I make fun of them, but also I feel for them and I understand their pain because of all the sad teams that I root for. I know what they're going through and I know how it feels, Cubs fan, sort of. Except I haven't had a team that I root for that hasn't won a championship in over 100 years. That's two people's lifetimes. Okay, the last time the Cubs won the World Series, the Ottoman Empire still existed. This is my favorite statistic. The Ottoman Empire still existed when the Cubs last won a World Series. Sure, it was declining and not powerful, but it was still there. That's history book stuff. It's been like 115 years. And the Cubs have been cursed. A lot of people believe in the curse. I don't believe in the curse. I just think they're just really unlucky and unfortunate. But they have had incidents happen where they've been close to winning or being in a World Series or winning in the playoffs. And, you know, incidents like the Steve Bartman incident happens where Bartman reaches, he catches, he's a fan and he catches the ball, you know, like a fan would want to, except by catching the ball, the other team scored a home run and the Cubs lose. And he's a Cubs fan. So he basically helped lose for the Cubs. That's one of the worst feelings probably in life. You being a fan of a team and being a fan, not even being a player on the field, being a fan, you help your team lose. And it's definitely your fault. It's not the superstition of if I wear blue on an NFL Sunday, the Redskins won't win because obviously the Dallas Cowboys wear blue and they're evil. And why would I also wear blue? And that's how I help the Redskins win, by avoiding the color blue on my person. So It's not one of those situations. He literally helped them lose. It's not even close. But you've got teams like the Astros. You've got teams like the Cubs. And baseball added a wild card game. And the wild card game opens things up for teams that would typically not have had a chance to get into the playoffs to make it in. And last season is probably the best example of that. The Kansas City Royals make it into the playoffs. They make it into the wild card game. And I mean, they squeaked it. If we're completely honest, I don't think anybody thought the Royals had what it took, but they get in, they win their wild card game. It's a one-off game. You win, you move on, you lose, you go home. And then the other games are 7-game series. And, I really, that was my favorite baseball run ever. I'm not old enough to remember a lot of the magical things that happened in the late 80s and early 90s in baseball. But seeing the Kansas City Royals last year, what an incredible story. They go undefeated. They go 7 games. Royals fans haven't seen the playoffs since, was it 80, 81? It was an incredible run. And baseball delivered on that promise that the NFL doesn't really deliver on. You look at the last teams in the NFL in the Super Bowl. Well, last year we had what? Last season we had Seahawks, Patriots. The season before that we had Broncos, Seahawks. You keep going back and you find that you see the Patriots a lot. You see teams that have Peyton Manning enough. You see the Steelers frequently. You see the Giants frequently. It's like the same 6 teams. And the NFL or the NBA doesn't even try to deliver that promise to you. We know the contenders in the NBA already. That's just a different game. But when it comes to the NFL trying to sell you on this, any of your teams can win. That's not true, though. That's actually false. We know who's going to be a contender already. Despite the fact that the NFL sells you on this dream, we know that the Patriots are going to be around. We know the Broncos are going to be around. The Seahawks will probably return again. Nobody knows what the Giants are going to do, but you've got the Packers and Aaron Rodgers. Like, those are your teams. There's not going to be any surprises in the NFL, and there hasn't been for a while. We just all like to pretend that it is. What I'm hoping in college football is that this 4-team playoff gives you that surprise. I think that it did last year because you had Ohio State, and Ohio State wasn't initially the class of college football. They had to go through some hardship. They lost early. They lost 2 quarterbacks in Barrett and Braxton Miller, and ended up winning with Cardell Jones, who had only played the only 3 games that he had ever won were the 3 games leading up to the national championship, including the national championship that won Ohio State the whole thing, which is unbelievable. You're listening to Clutch with Keon Rose. I'm really glad to have you with me, and we'll have more sports right around the corner for you here on AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Becoming partly sunny out there through the afternoon. Mainly dry, warm but not hot. Highs near 85. Tonight, partly cloudy, lows into the upper 60s. For Tuesday as well as the midweek, heating up a little more with partly cloudy skies. Still looking dry for a while with highs of around 90. This forecast is brought to you by State Farm Insurance, specializing in auto, home, life, and banking. To find an agent or to get a quote now, their website, statefarm.com. And I'm WDEF News 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Hoare.
On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio. This is America Now with Meghan McCain.
Al Gore running is crazy. You're flying around in your private jet all over the world, and you want average Americans to care about the environment. Don't you think you should be doing your part as well?
Meghan McCain, weekdays at 7 p.m.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
We've got a table here at Delia's and Saudi Daisy. ready to delight in a plate of authentic Mexican food. Delia's spreads a rich selection: loaded nachos, crazy chicken, homemade tamales, maybe the enchiladas with beef, chicken, pork, quesadillas. Every dish beautifully pictured on the menu to help us decide. Join us for lunch or dinner. We're at Delia's in Saudi Daisy on Dayton Pike near the Thrasher Light. Here's dinner. Delia's uses the freshest ingredients, cooked to perfection. Nachos, homemade. Delia's open every day except the Lord's Day. For lunch and dinner, treat yourself to Delia's genuine Mexican food. In Saudi, call 521-7145. That's 521-7145.
You want more business. You want to increase your bottom line. You want to spend less on advertising, imaging your business, and general expenses. You need Trade Bank. Trade Bank of Chattanooga. Trade Bank. Call now to get access to nearly 400 local businesses. Trade Bank. Call 877-2202. 877-2202. Trade Bank. You want to increase your cash flow, your competitive edge, attract new customers, and build a loyal customer base. You need Trade Bank of Chattanooga. Call right now. 877-2202. When you join Trade Bank, you'll get the benefit of free advertising in our monthly magazine, tradebank.com, emails, and mailouts. Join Trade Bank now and receive your Trade Bank debit card with trade credits to spend any way you want with our wide variety of Trade Bank partners. For almost 30 years, Trade Bank has been your voice for small business, a member of the American Bankers Association, and in good standing with you. Trade Bank of Chattanooga. Call now for a free consultation, 877-2202. That's 877-2202. Trade Bank of Chattanooga.
Social media, we're on that. Hot News Talk Radio on Facebook, at Hot News Talk Radio on Twitter. Download the TuneIn app and follow us anywhere at any time. AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
If you have the DTs, the shakes, because your phone is on the fritz, you have nomophobia. You need help. Your telecom doctor is in. Cell Surgeon at Northgate Mall. Cell Surgeon yanks open the ribcage of your phone, pries out the dead heart, and puts in the beating life that you lead on your cell phone. Broken screen, phone not charging, water damage, battery given out? Cell Surgeon in Northgate Mall next Old Chicago Pizza. Check us out on Facebook. Open Sunday. Cell Surgeon. We bring your phone back to life. Mention Hot News Talk Radio and get 10% off.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
This is AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. You can find us on your mobile device using the TuneIn Radio app. Simply search it in the Apple Store or Google Play Store, and you can have Hot News Talk Radio wherever you go. Simply search Hot News Talk Radio, press follow, and then play, and bam, you've got us. You've got me. You've got David Tulis, a.k.a. The David, Eric Judd from 11 to noon, and the adolescent, Russell, Digital Drive, which I prefer the adolescent. I felt uncomfortable calling Russell the kid because we're both in our 20s, and so we're basically colleagues. This is not I'm not talking to a 10-year-old. Russell's a big guy. So we're calling him the adolescent. He's progressed, he's matured, he's evolved, and we continue to move forward. And also you can catch Russell from 5 to 6, Hot News Now, our local drive home show. We've got news, we've got the weather, we've got everything Chattanooga and beyond that you need to know on your way home from work. And I'd be remiss to mention Cowboy Up with Tex. Tex is back, everybody. I know you've been waiting to see the big Texas belt buckle, the Texas shirt, the cowboy hat, and you can find it if you listen to Cowboy Up with Tex from 6 to 7 on YouTube. You search Hot News Talk Radio on YouTube, you will see the Texan himself. So, without further ado, more sports. This is Clutch. This is a sports show, and I try and be general. I try and talk a lot of different sports. It's a little harder to talk about that today because of the breaking story with the Washington Redskins. and everything that they're going through in that organization. It is dysfunctional, has been for years. We know this, and I remember watching the NFL Network had a countdown of the top 10 worst free agent signings in the history of the league. And you know what number 1 on that list was? Anyone signed by the Washington Redskins. It's hard to disagree with a track record like that. There are so many things that they've done wrong. Albert Hainsworth, old Deion Sanders, Adam Archuleta. Too many things to count, and still counting in a lot of ways. I think ever since they hired Scott McClouhan as their general manager this past offseason, I think McClouhan has done a lot of things in terms of signing sensible pieces that fit for the team, but I just don't see that being something that's going to pay off for another 2, 3, even 4 seasons. So you're telling me by the time it's 2020, the Redskins will finally be good and competitive? I'll take it over nothing for sure, but these things don't pay off overnight. They're going to take some time to build up. They just will. And with regards to that, the year 2020, Kanye West, I don't know if you heard, Kanye West said he's going to run for president in 2020. I hope that look, I hope we don't even get close to that. And I'm scared. And you know why I'm scared? Because apparently all it takes is having big, bold opinions and a lot of money. And then you've got a Donald Trump situation where Donald Trump can use the Republican candidacy to get himself attention. And then you know what? If the Republicans don't select him, he can use his own money and run for president anyway. I don't know. Look, no one's going to actually vote for Kanye West. I'm just saying it's pretty scary that he thinks that he can do it. Like, there was a time when he wouldn't have dreamed of doing it. And it's unfortunate that he thinks that he can do it. He is a little delusional. I'll grant him that, but I cannot even wrap my mind around that. I know that's not sports, but I had to tell somebody. Okay, I had to talk this out with somebody because I cannot believe that he even thought about it. Like, it was on the news, like CNN put it on the news. Golly, no. Can I start that petition? No to Kanye West, not just in 2020, in ever. Okay. Now that I've gotten that off my chest, back to sports. I was talking about how the NFL sells you on the illusion of basically your team can win the Super Bowl. Any season, your team is capable of winning the Super Bowl. But this is not true, really. The NFL has parity, sort of. On any given Sunday, any team can beat any team. I mean, they are all grown men playing the sport. Even the worst team has an opportunity to beat the best one. But if you look at the last few Super Bowl winners, it's been fairly redundant. I don't think we've seen any surprises or anybody big named or new show up in recent memory in the Super Bowl. You see a lot of teams that appear again and again and again. You look at the Colts, you look at the Ravens. These are the last few teams to show up in the Super Bowl. The New England Patriots and Seattle Seahawks last season. The season before that, Seahawks and Broncos. The season before that, Ravens and 49ers. The season before that, Giants and Patriots. The season before that, Packers and Steelers. Saints and Colts. And so you see a lot of these threads here. You see the Colts a lot. You see the Steelers a lot. You see the Patriots a lot. And then you see the Steelers a lot. I mean, it's and the Seahawks the last couple of seasons from the NFC. It's been that basically on a loop. You're not seeing the Cardinals that often. You see them once, and they got beaten by the Steelers. You're not going out there and seeing the Texans very often. Okay, the Buccaneers are not making very many appearances. It's like 6 teams. So the NFL can sell you on this all they want to. It's not true. You look at Major League Baseball, and the gloves are off on that one. Anybody really can win it. I think it's a little top heavy. You can certainly find where the same teams have been winning it, but the same teams have not been going year after year after year. The Royals show up out of nowhere, and I think with this wild card that they've added, it's going to be even more of a crapshoot. It's going to be even more wide open because one game to win the wild card. If you don't play that one game well, you have a bad game, you're gone. So you're going to see a lot of new faces. And I think in baseball, probably more so than any other sport, it's easy to get on a hot streak. Very, very commonly, teams will go on 8, 10-game winning streaks in baseball. This happens frequently, and the really good teams manage to sustain it. That's hard to come by. I think in the NBA, you look at all those 7-game series, the reason why you've always got the NBA playoffs until July, basically, is because getting on a winning streak in the NBA against other high-level NBA teams, tough to do. In baseball, if you exploit somebody's weakness, you can run through them in 4 games. In basketball, it's about having superior talent. It's a lot about adjustments. Adjusting in baseball is more about the numbers. And that's hard to swallow a little bit because, again, we like to see those guys go out there and try hard and have determination and have heart. And when you start to boil people down to numbers, it makes us all very, very uncomfortable. But when you start looking at numbers, it's fun to look at week 1 of the college football schedule. College football comes up this Thursday, and I'm excited because TCU is going to be playing on Thursday night. I'm going to try and catch that one. 9 o'clock on ESPN. They're going to play in Minneapolis, Minnesota. The Minnesota Gophers will be taking on the TCU Horned Frogs. TCU is ranked number 2 in the nation. And I've been hearing a lot that Minnesota is not going to go down without a fight. That TCU is not going to come in and march in and beat up Minnesota as badly as they think they will. I don't know about all of that, but I do know that I'm excited to watch Trevon Boykin and see where he's going to be and what he's going to be doing in that game, especially since he's got the opportunity to win the Heisman this season. And I think that he does have as good a shot as anybody. I personally think he'll win it just because of the preference that quarterbacks get in these kinds of things. If Boykin puts up big numbers, I think that he's probably going to win it. And if he's not able to put up big numbers this season, then it's going to be one of the running backs, one of the big name running backs, either Ezekiel Elliott from Ohio State or Nick Chubb from the University of Georgia. Also on Thursday night, UTSA plays Arizona, number 22 ranked Arizona. UTSA is the University of Texas in San Antonio, where I'm from. And so I'm excited to see UTSA get on the national stage and be in a big game. But I'm worried for them, of course, because Arizona is a very, very talented team. And outside of the SEC, the Pac-12 might be the best conference of the Power 5 conferences in college football. And Arizona is probably up there with one of the bigger teams. I think a lot of people are expecting a lot out of USC, and I think that Oregon's obviously not going to go anywhere just because they lost Mariota. That's not the end of that run. But Arizona stunned some people last year with a lot of freshmen on their team. Now these guys are a year older, a year wiser, hopefully better. I'm expecting a lot out of them. Friday, number 5, Michigan State, and the debut of Jim Harbaugh after his, shall we say, controversial exit from the NFL. They play Western Michigan. I don't expect that game to be close at all, but it'll be interesting to see Michigan State, how they match up, just what they even look like now under Harbaugh. That's going to be an interesting thing. Baylor, number 4 ranked Baylor, plays SMU. That's another woodshed beating waiting to happen. But again, interesting to see how Baylor replaces Bryce Petty at the quarterback position moving forward, and how the Big 12 is going to match up. So you got back-to-back days of Big 12 football on ESPN. And then moving into Saturday, where the bulk of this stuff happens.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Costa, host of the Costa Report, every Sunday at 9 a.m. Did you know that 1 out of 10 Americans will be diagnosed with what is considered to be a rare disease, and that it could take up to 3, 5, 8 years to diagnose that disease? Find out how my next guest, Jared Heyman, is using the internet to cut that time to less than 3 months. Don't miss Jared Heyman this Sunday at 9 a.m. on the Costa Report, right here on AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
Hi, I'm David Tulis, inviting you to make the move with me 9 to 11 a.m. weekdays here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. The David Tulis Show, featuring Nooganomics.com for Chattanooga and beyond. 9 to 11 a.m. weekdays.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Sky Aerial Services uses advanced drone technology to give you a better perspective and depth of your property and project. We offer aerial photography and video for your business, farm, home, or advertising campaigns, as well as editing services to complete the experience. Call us at 423-521-0284 and see how we can help you tell your story about your business, property, or project. We work with real estate professionals, both commercial and residential, developers, engineer inspectors, surveyors, ad agencies, auto and boat dealers, mapping services, insurance inspectors, corporate marketing, charity events, weddings, and photographers. Our consultation is free. Call 423-521-0284. That's 423-521-0284, or visit our website, skyaerialservices.com. Sky Aerial Services. The sky is our limit.
This is America Now with Meghan McCain.
Al Gore running is crazy. You're flying around in your private jet all over the world, and you want average Americans to care about the environment. Don't you think you should be doing your part as well?
Meghan McCain, weekdays at 7 p.m.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Here comes Dale Earnhardt Jr. He's got third. He's going for second. Earnhardt going for the lead.
The NASCAR Sprint Cup Series is on the Motor Racing Network. Coverage continues Sunday here at Live on the Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR.
Check it out this Sunday live on Chattanooga's official NASCAR radio station.